Good morning. This is your AFL Hour here with Liam O'Grady. Yes, just me today. Geoff is away busy. But nonetheless, I have a massive show for you today. I'll take a look at all the special games during the bye week. God, that was a success. The EJ Winning Legends game and the Women's All-Stars. And I'll pick two future legends of the female competition who caught my eye on the weekend. I've also got a full wrap-up of the Doggies' amazing win last night in Perth in the elimination final. And we'll go back in time and look at the last 10 grand finals. And look at there's a trend in them that maybe put a question to how fair the AFL is. Also, little brothers can be annoying, but they can also be better than the older ones at sport. I'll explain why. And all that and more here on the AFL Hour. It is currently 15 degrees here in Melbourne with a light rain. At the moment there's no rain, but cloudy here in Melbourne. There should be rain during the final tonight between Geelong and Hawthorn at the G. But yes, this is Liam O'Grady on 3SSR. On the weekend, we had the bye round. Was it a success? Personally, I don't think so. Wasn't a fan. I think footy should just keep on going. Kind of kills the momentum of footy. But on Friday night, we had the EJ Winning Legends game. With the Vics getting up over the All-Stars. Which, a good fun chowder match as it should be. I did really enjoy the goal shootout. That was something that maybe they shouldn't bring into the AFL rule system, but I think is a good addition to the game. On Saturday down at EJ Winning Oval, the Women's All-Stars match, which was the final shootout between the women until the 2017 inaugural season begins. And we had the Doggies get over the Demons there. Mo Hope, there you go. Mo Hope kicked 4 goals in the third quarter, so she ended with 6 goals 3 to help the Bulldogs get over the line. Watching that, all I can think about is, whoa. I remember watching, I was talking to my girlfriend's dad at the time, and I was like, she is an absolute superstar. Mo Hope is an absolute superstar. I even said that she'll be probably the first ever poster girl of the female competition when it enters next year. At the age of 28, she'll probably go for 4 or 5 more years. She'll probably be at Collingwood, yeah. She'll be on a lot of young girls' posters, young girls' walls, all over Australia, which is what we want. This is what the female competition needed to have. But it's also good that there was a 19-year-old who played for Melbourne but will play for Brisbane next year, Taylor Harris, who has such a Nick Reebok kicking style, it's not funny. And once Mo Hope gives up, Taylor Harris will be the next poster girl of the female league. But now let's get to the big game. The second elimination final on Thursday night, which was for the first time ever a final was on a Thursday. Well, it wasn't a success for West Coast fans. But Doggies recorded their biggest victory, in my opinion, since the 1961 prelim final when they defeated Melbourne to get into the 1961 grand final. The Eagles enter the game as overwhelming favourites, and the Doggies have never won a final interstate before. As the Eagles were also the informed team heading to the game, the Doggies started off the game fast, but could only manage 3 points until West Coast Josh Kennedy, the gold medalist, kicked the first goal of the game, followed by another goal by Jack Darling to give the Eagles a 9-point lead. But that was it for the Eagles pretty much for the game. The Bulldogs kicked 4 goals in a row to end the quarter to lead by 13 points at quarter time. Myself and the football world was waiting for the Eagles to take control of the game, but that wasn't the case. The Doggies kicked the first 3 goals of the quarter and made it 7 in a row and looked like causing a major upset. It took until the 21st minute mark of the second quarter for West Coast Mitch Brown, who usually plays in defence, to kick the Eagles' first goal. And bad news for the Doggies, once again, Western Bulldogs lost Ling John to a broken collarbone, joins the massive injury list for the Bulldogs in 2016. But that didn't stop the Doggies. They led by 24 points at half-time. Go down to the second half. The Bulldogs started the game off strongly with Clay Smith and Liam Picken to stretch the margin. Clay Smith and Liam Picken both kicked goals to stretch the margin out to 38 points. But a great mark by former Dog Josh Hill got the margin back to 31. Again, we're all waiting for the Eagles to make a comeback, and every goal West Coast kicked, every point West Coast kicked, I remember saying to my friend, and I was thinking to myself, that's it, this is their comeback, this is their comeback. The only team who didn't get that memo were the Bulldogs. They were too busy winning. A goal from Dunkley and Rufford created a 41-point lead until a last-minute goal from Jack Darling reduced the margin to 36 points at the final break. The final quarter started off with Josh Dunkley kicking his second goal, and the Bulldogs looked home. And I think the Eagles faltered too. They really dropped off in the last quarter. The Doggies got to high as 54 points up until Coleman Ellis Josh Kennedy kicked his 82nd goal of the season to finish the game. The Doggies knocking the Eagles out by 47 points. The final score was West Coast 7-10-52 to the Western Bulldogs 14-15-99. The goal kickers of the game were Darling and Kennedy for the Eagles kicked 2, and for the Doggies, Picken, Dixon and Dunkley also finished off with 2 goals. The Eagles season is over, so they've got to focus now on 2017. So their last 2 finals for the West Coast Eagles have been a loss at home and a loss in the grand final. For the Doggies, they played a loser of tonight's Geelong versus Hawthorn match. I remember after the game, I was thinking to myself, and I'm pretty sure everyone, a Bulldog supporter or not a Bulldog supporter, should agree that if the Doggies go on to make a grand final or win a premiership, it will be because of this game. The Doggies, actually, wow, that was a bad voice break. The Doggies, at the moment, have the longest premiership drought in the AFL. They've got the longest grand final drought of all time in the AFL/VSL. And they're currently 3rd overall in the longest AFL final drought. So even saying the Western Bulldogs can make a grand final sounds odd because it doesn't happen. It hasn't happened at all. But hopefully, for me, I want to see the Doggies up there because I'm starting to get sick of the whole Hawthorn, Geelong, Sydney routine. If you want to join in and message me at any time, you can contact the 3SSR studio in 0481 071 121. But on the topic of winning, we'll go through all the awards that took place from our last show, and the 2016 NAB Rising Star Award. This is the AFL Hour with Liam O'Grady. Geoff is not here today. We'll start things off again with the AFL Best and Fairest. The one thing I would not want to be as an AFL player, I would hate to go to all the awards. The awards would do my head in having to dress up in a nice suit, even though I love dressing up in suits. But going to the awards just over and over again, especially if you're like Dangerfield this year, knowing you're going to win all the awards. It's like, what's the point of other people going? But we'll start off, as Jeff and I said last week, that Zach Merritt and Jack Stevens won their club's respective Best and Fairest. We'll start off with the Gold Coast. And for the second year in a row, Tom Lynch won his club's Best and Fairest. Yes, Tom Lynch won with 209 votes to make it his back-to-back and his second Gold Coast Best and Fairest. In the second spot, we had Jared Harbaugh on 129 votes, and in third place, Jack Martin with 102 votes. Just across the road at Brisbane. Dane Zorko won his second Best and Fairest, and as well, back-to-back, with 122 votes. In second place, it was Mitch Robertson, the former Blues, second year at Brisbane, racked up 110 votes. He was also part of the joint winner of last year's Best and Fairest. Also part of that joint winning was Stefan Martin on 106 votes. And the fourth member of that last year's Best and Fairest was also Dane Beams. Head over now to Melbourne. And Jack Viney won his first Melbourne Best and Fairest on 407 votes. Followed up by skipper Nathan Jones on 399 and All-Australian Maxi Gawn on 374. I'm kind of surprised Maxi Gawn didn't win considering he did make All-Australian. And then just last night, Richmond held their Best and Fairest. Don't know why you'll hold it during a final, but people will probably be on their phone checking the scores. But Dustin Martin took out his first Best and Fairest. By one vote, Dustin Martin was on 62, and Alex Rance, last year's Best and Fairest winner, was on 61. And in third place, Trent Cotchins was on 51 votes. So Dustin Martin on 62, Alex Rance on 61, and Trent Cotchins on 51. it's funny because you hear on I think it was SEN was saying the other day that Alex Duran should take over as captain, and Trent Cotchin shouldn't be captain. I for one I kind of agree with the Trent Cotchin situation. I think Trent Cotchin should be captain, but he should not have been captain when he was captain. I think he should have went to Brett Deledio from 2013 to probably now, and now Cotchin should take reins as captain. Because I think Cotchin shows over and over again that he is a really good player, but he's just lacking in the few things, and the captaincy is too young. I'm a fan of the older captains, so 27 onwards, 25 maybe. So that's why I'm happy that Patrick Cripps isn't the captain of Carlton. It's still Mark Murphy. I'm pretty sure Colin will probably have a captain in between Scott Penderbury and either Treloar or Taylor Adams. They'll probably have a captain in between those two. Bontempelli shouldn't be. I think Easton Wood should become captain of Bulldogs maybe for a year or two before Bontempelli becomes captain of the Doggies. So it's good that clubs can have a gate bridge. I use the example of Fremantle at the moment. You had Pavlich, and while the Pavlich era and the players who played with Pavlich era come to a close, David Mundy became captain. And for maybe 1 or 2 seasons, he'll hand it over to Fife, and the next era of Fremantle will be under Nathan Fife for his probably 5, 6, 7 year captain's raid. Which, if you heard a few weeks ago, I don't think Fife should be captain of Fremantle, but I don't think Fremantle cares about a school radio host's opinion. Well, they do. Now, on Wednesday, they had the NAB Rising Star Award, and surprisingly, and I kind of feel mean now, I had no idea who Callum Milnes is until that day. I had Jacob Wiedering as my favourite to win, and I probably also had maybe Darcy Parish up there. But in third place, it was Jacob Wiedering from Carlton with 26 votes. In second, Caleb Daniel from the Bulldogs. And in first place, it was Callum Milnes from the Sydney Swans. Callum Milnes joins Dan Hanbury and Adam Good as Sydney Swans NAB Rising Star winners. And if Sydney can get up and win the premiership this season, Callum Milnes could become the second player to win the premiership and the NAB Rising Star in the same year. The first one was, of course, Joel Selwood in 2007. And Callum Milnes joins the list of the Western Bulldogs players to become runners-up. He's the third to become runners-up. Ryan Griffin in 2005, Marcus Bontempelli in 2014, and God, isn't that hard to believe that Marcus Bontempelli became second in NAB Rising Star, to Lewis Taylor, who, if you don't know who Lewis Taylor is, he plays for Brisbane. He's a small forward / midfielder. He's good. Well, he won the NAB Rising Star, but he's good. But, Bontempelli probably proved that he's a bit of a better player. Also, we'll go back to the best and fairest. So Tom Lynch, Dane Zorko joins Jack Stevens in the back-to-back best and fairest winners. And it's kind of an interesting thing to look at. Jack Stevens now, who won St Kilda's best and fairest last week, has won his third. It's not often players win 3 best and fairest. Dane Zorko has won 2, and Tom Lynch has won 2. And I guarantee you Tom Lynch has many, many more to come as he is only 23 years old. There's also an interesting looking at this is that all 3 of them are probably likely to captain their club next year. And I'll probably discuss that more when I talk about the trade rumours and who's going to go where later on in the program. And also, before we go to a song break, the Port Adelaide and Carlton best and fairest are tonight. And my tips for this one, I've got Kate Simpson probably will take out the Carlton best and fairest. And the Port Adelaide is hard. I'll probably say Robbie Gray. I think Robbie Gray will take out his third Port Adelaide best and fairest. But after this, we're going to go through the last 10 AFL Grand Finals and see if there's a bit of inconsistency there. And if you could dedicate that song to one AFL player, probably be Buddy Franklin to me. Just someone so big and play so good. This is the AFL Hour with Liam O'Grady here on 3SSR. It is currently 15 degrees here. And it's starting to rain, and the wind seems to be picking up. So it's going to be a beautiful day today. I love wet weather. Not even joking. I can't stand summer. I don't like the heat. I don't like the stupid Facebook posts that are like, the weather gets warmer, the days get longer, summer's better. They annoy me, those posts. So I'm a winter person. I love the cold. I love, my theory is in winter, you can keep yourself warm and you can make yourself warm. But to keep yourself cool, you can only take off so many layers of clothing. But let's get back to the main topic, the last 10 grand finals. If you haven't realised already, the top 3 this season is Hawthorn, Sydney and Geelong. Which would be good if that hasn't been the last few grand finals or the last few top 3s. We can start off in 05 with Sydney. It was Sydney West Coast. In 06 it was also Sydney West Coast. And then started that reign for Geelong when they played in 07, 08, 09, 2011 to make 4 grand finals. Hawthorn played in 08, 2012, 2013, 2014 and 2015, where Sydney also continued to play in 2012 and 2014. So in this time, in the last 10 years, only Port Adelaide and Fremantle have played in 1. St Kilda have played in 2 or 3, depends on how you count the draw, and Collingwood's played in 2 or 3. I remember talking to a friend the other day, and I was thinking to myself, God, I love the 2010 grand final. Not because of the draw, not because Collingwood won, not because anything actually. It was just the fact that it was a break from the Geelong, Sydney, Hawthorn regime. And the likelihood of this season is that Sydney, Hawthorn or Geelong will probably play off in the grand final again. And people who are going to probably say, and everyone who's listening to me, the whole 4 people, I do thank you here on the AFL Hour. But people are like, oh, GWS will make it better. They'll make the grand final. GWS won't. GWS will be like Hawthorn. They'll make probably in the next 4. I've got them making the grand final next year and then winning in 2018 and 19 and 20. I've got them doing a 3-peat. That's already 4 grand finals I've made. But has it always been like this? I've done a bit of research myself, and we'll go down to the 80s. All the way down to the 80s. In 10 years, so 1980 to 1989. We had Hawthorn make 7, Carlton's made 4, Essendon 3, Richmond 2, Collingwood 2, Melbourne 1, and Geelong 1. So that was all in the 1980s. Lesser teams, only 12 teams in the 1980s compared to the 18 in the 2000 and 2010s. I like freshness in AFL. This is more of a personal opinion than anything else. I don't mind. If Hawthorn wins, good on them. They deserve it. The best teams deserve to win. But players also, we'll go on, I'll talk about this more when I talk about the things I don't like about footy. Players want to play for a winning side. Geelong would not be up in the top 4 if they did not get Patrick Dangerfield. And I know a few Geelong supporters will be out there being like, we're the best, go Geelong. Because no one loves Geelong more than Geelong. They wouldn't. Sydney got Buddy. Hawthorn could get Jager O'Meara and Tom Mitchell, 2 up-and-coming midfielders. Because players want to go to the teams that's winning. Why haven't Melbourne made a final in the last 10 seasons? Melbourne's last final series was in 2006. Richmond have made 4 final series in the last 30 years. So 5 final series in the last 30 years. Almost 40 years now. Doggies have not made a grand final since 1961. It's just the thing now, especially now with free agency, that players will want to go to the teams that are winning premierships. Collingwood, no matter where Collingwood is on the ladder, Collingwood is the place players want to go to nonetheless because of who they are. They are that rich club. They have all the supporters. They're the most well-known club in Australia. If Collingwood had their way, the city of Melbourne would be called the city of Collingwood. And enough inside of Collingwood, they're actually a really good team. Just recently, they're the only football team I've followed on Twitter that followed me back. So shout out to Collingwood. But has the AFL always been like this? Then that's an important question. Again, more research have shown. Gotta stop saying Research has shown that 1940s was probably the worst season, the most inconsistent season for a team. Essendon made 8 grand finals, includes a draw, so they do the replay. But the last 10 grand finals, and probably the future ones, I've got, if you people want to know my opinion for the next few grand finals, I do have Sydney defeating Geelong in this year's grand final. I have Geelong defeating GWS in next year's grand final. Then I have GWS defeating Geelong in the 2018 Grand Final. 2019, I've got GWS defeating Essendon, and then who knows what after that. But if you're a fan of Hawthorn, Sydney and Geelong, it's probably not all bad. You're probably enjoying the success your team's having. Because even though they're up there now, in 10 years' time, there'll be another 3-4 teams that's always up there and we'll have the same conversation again. Seems to be all the time, apart from 2 decades, the 60s and the 90s, where the most of the team has made a grand final have been 3 times. And there were multiple teams. In the 1960s, we had Carlton, Collingwood and Essendon both playing 3. In the 90s, you had Carlton, Geelong, North Melbourne and West Coast all playing 3 grand finals. So what I say to what I say to Hawthorn, Sydney and Geelong, enjoy this small period. Hawthorn will be on the way down. They probably will not make a grand final for maybe another 5 years if they make the one this year. Geelong will only have a quick success with their old list, and Sydney are always up there anyways. So that's my mini rant plus informational session about the last 10 years. And again, players want to go to the good clubs. That's why players want to start going to the Bulldogs, and that's why players will probably want to start going to GWS soon, because that's what good clubs do. So enough nagging about the AFL. I do love AFL. So enough nagging about the AFL. After this, we're going to go through the trade rumours of this season on the AFL Hour with Liam O'Grady. Yes, Liam O'Grady's going solo today. So the AFL is almost at the end with the finals have just kicked off, but players have already announced they want to move or have already got told they're going to move. And like every season, but this season seems like there's going to be a lot more than previous. And so the player movement's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger because of free agency and more money. And again, that will probably come later with my things I don't like about AFL rant. But we'll start off with we'll probably say the biggest name. Maybe it's a few years past his biggest name now, but Travis Cloke. I've spoken about him on the show before. Cloke, who's announced he wants to go to the Bulldogs. After watching last night's game, does he belong or should he go to the Bulldogs? That's probably the biggest question. As Tom Boyd played probably his best game of his career against the Eagles, was about kicking a goal. Stuart Crameri's coming back, and Jake Stringer's in that forward line as well. How would Cloke improve? There is a player I think the Doggies should get. Alex Zavani from the Fremantle Dockers, who is a 28-year-old defender, who's the type of player I think the Doggies will need, especially if they're trying to reach for that ultimate success. Just the other day, we read online, and they've announced that, well, they haven't announced, but rumours going around that Geelong are chasing after Brett Deledio, and Deledio is one of 2 Richmond players who could be leaving Richmond at the end of the season. The other one is Jack Riewoldt. There's no initial rumour yet to where he could be going, but Gold Coast has also seemed to be interested in Brett Deledio and Jack Riewoldt. Don't know why Riewoldt would want to go up to the Gold Coast, but I digress. We'll go down to the Gold Coast actually. Darren Prestia. He's being hunted by Richmond, and he's already said he wants to go to Richmond. So that's pretty much going to be a done deal, which could lead for Brett Deledio to head off over to the Gold Coast, which would be a good thing for the Suns, even though Deledio is going to be 30 years old. But they probably need that older midfielder, older backline player to help them get towards the finals. The biggest one probably for Western Australians here is Hayden Ballantyne. He's all but leaving Fremantle at the end of the season, even though he still has a year left to go on his contract. Clubs that are looking for him have been Geelong, West Coast and Essendon. But the question is, it's going to be hard for Geelong to fit Brett Deledio, Hayden Ballantyne, and also, if what I've been, Damien Barrett has reported that Gary Ablett, if he gets his way, he could be heading back to Geelong as well. So unless they want to pay him all $1 each, but Hayden Ballantyne could be a key for a swap Shane Kirsten to Fremantle. Sticking on the Dockers, we've got Chris Mayne, who announced yesterday that he's going to have 3 interviews with 3 Melbourne clubs, and those clubs are North Melbourne, Collingwood and Richmond. He's been linked to North Melbourne since pretty much the start of the season, but you're thinking a 27-year-old forward in a club that's rebuilding, you got Collingwood, who's about to make their charge, and Richmond, a club that's rebuilding. So none of them really seem like a good fit for him. We go down to, again, Collingwood's Nathan Brown has been linked to North Melbourne. Again, if North Melbourne just got rid of all these older players, why would they want to get older players in? Unless they think they are a genuine chance for the premiership next season. I was just saying during the best and fairest how Tom Lynch, Jack Stevens, and Dane Zorko could all captain their club next year. Well, Tom Rockcliffe has been rumoured to be leaving Brisbane and be moving to Adelaide. They've shut that rumour down numerous of times, but until 2017 starts up and he's at the club, he's been rumoured to leave. Dane Zorko have gone on record to say that he really likes Tom Rockcliffe and they're not going anywhere. But one thing I know, and I remember saying this during the Fife thing with me and Geoff, how Geoff was like, how I said to Geoff that Freo fans will be all happy if Fife says he's going to stay, which he ended up doing the next week, saying, I see my future Fremantle, but don't buy anything anyone says until they put pen to paper. And that's how the AFL and life should work. Because I know, for example, I was promised a February latest start at a radio station, actually. And I messaged them only a few weeks ago to ask for a refund of my money because it was, 4 or 5 months later, I still haven't gone on for a show. So you guys are lucky you have me. Smiley face. We'll go down now to Gold Coast, have Jaeger O'Meara, who announced that he wants to leave Gold Coast. And I think I've made my opinion on Jaeger O'Meara pretty clear how I think, even though he kind of blames the Suns for his knee not getting right, the fact that after all that hard work they put into him, he wants to leave, it's a disgusting act from any player. Carlton, Essendon, St Kilda, Hawthorn and Collingwood are all in the mix for him. The biggest rumour is Hawthorn. He'll probably likely go to Hawthorn. Like I said, success is the key. Go down to Hawthorn, actually. Bradley Hill has had a meeting with Fremantle coach Ross Lyon and will probably end up at Fremantle this year, next year, in probably a swap for, I'll say, a Nick Subban or Michael Barlow, who's also next. Michael Barlow is also on this list as another Freo player. There's going to be I could have done a whole list on Fremantle players. They get rid of their entire list at the end of this season. Michael Barlow has pretty much been shown the door. He has come to terms with him and Freo will probably not be together next year. Hawthorn seems like a good fit if they want to continue to go for a premiership. Apart from that, I'll probably say maybe St Kilda will be a fit for him. It was rumoured after the president of the Gold Coast lashed out at Jaeger O'Meara, which I 100% agree with. If you're building a club and all these players come for 2 seasons and leave, what's the point? So I think maybe some of the stuff he said was harsh, but I agree 100% with what he said. David Swallow has been linked to North Melbourne even halfway through the season, but he could be getting out of his contract with a year left to go. We'll go down now to Tom Mitchell from Sydney, who could be leaving Sydney to go to Hawthorn. Surprise, surprise. And Tyrone Vickery, who apparently Hawthorn's offering a lot of money to. Which is amazing because Tyrone Vickery is an average player at best, but I don't know how or why Hawthorn will want to pick him up. Then Caleb Marchbank from GWS has already told the Giants he doesn't want to stay there anymore. And he'll probably head off to St Kilda, where also with the Giants, GWS player Rory Lobb has apparently hinted he wanted to head back over to WA. West Coast seems to be the front runner in him, while Fremantle seems to be the front runner in Giants forward Cam McCarthy. The GWS Giants have a habit of losing tall forwards. Tom Boyd left, Rory Lobb might leave, and Cam McCarthy wants to leave. Out of all these big names, and Freo has the likes of Matthew De Boer, Nick Zub, and all these other big players that will probably leave the club at the end of the year. It makes me wonder, not so much loyalty, but money is good apparently. According to this, apart from Cloak, who wants a fresh start, and maybe Delidio wants a fresh start, but when a player quits a club and says they want a fresh start, then go to a top of the ladder club, it always raises suspicions. We're going to go to a song, and after this, I want to talk about Little Brothers And yes, little brothers are annoying. Trust me, I know. But history has shown that they could be better at sport than the older brothers. Trust me, I know. Here on the AFL Hour on 3SSR with Liam O'Grady on 3SSR. Isn't that the greatest song of all time? It is such a phenomenal, phenomenal song. It's one of those songs you can't help but sing. Well, so on Sunday, my younger brother, Declan Mark Emerson, will be playing in the grand final for his club, the East Point Bulldogs, in the Ballarat Football League. Shout out to my little brother. But got me thinking, my little brother just came off a 3-goal best on ground performance in the preliminary final. And I play football too. I also played in the grand final back in 2010, so we're probably the same age. I was 14 and he was 13. But in saying that, I've always come to the conclusion that my little brother has always been a better footballer than I have. Maybe I started a bit later than he did, because I did play under 9s and I also played, I played under 9s. I didn't play against under 15s, where my little brother's gone all the way through. And has also played basketball, rugby, soccer, badminton, tennis, hockey, ice hockey, Quidditch. He plays a whole lot of sports. And I've looked it up. I've looked at it in wrestling. I've looked at it in rugby. I've looked at it in all the sports. The younger brother, majority of the time, in percentage-wise, are usually better than the older brother. I've got a few examples. And I've got a few examples of older brothers that are better. We'll go... Probably an obvious one we've got here is Joel Selwood, the captain, the current Geelong captain, the 3-time Premiership player, the NAB Rising Star winner, and the current All-Australian captain. You know, he's the two older brothers, the twins Troy and Adam Selwood, where Troy was a VFL Premiership captain, where Adam won in the 2006 AFL Grand Final for West Coast. Sean Burgoyne, who's a 4-time Premiership player and has second in the most finals ever played in VFL AFL history, is the younger brother of Peter Burgoyne. And I don't know, I have no idea why the younger brother seems to be better at sports than the older brother, considering the older brother, no matter how old the younger brother is, the older brother will always win in a fight. And to the older brothers out there, will probably all agree, look at me and think to themselves, he's right, older brothers win. So this one's an interesting one I got here. I got Brother Hill, the younger brother of Stephen Hill, who's a 3-time Premiership player. Even though Stephen Hill has won 3 premierships, I do think... Sorry, even though Brother Hill's won 3 premierships, I think Stephen Hill's a much better footballer. But... and then you got... Brad Lloyd is the older brother of Matthew Lloyd. Brad Lloyd only played 13 games for Hawthorn, where Matthew Lloyd was an Essendon captain, a 3-time Coleman medalist, a 1-time Premiership player, and he kicked over 900 goals. Another good example is Luke Ball and Travis Cloke, both the youngest brothers. Both played in the 2010 Premiership, where Luke Ball was also St Kilda's captain at one point. And you got the Shaws. You got Tony Shaw, who's the younger brother of Ray Shaw. Ray Shaw, yes, well... Ray Shaw was the Collingwood captain during the 80s, but Tony Shaw was the Premiership captain, non-slip medalist, Collingwood captain, Collingwood Premiership captain, and the most games ever for Collingwood. Even though this is hype up for the younger brothers, for the older brothers, there are some limelights, like Gary Ablett and Nathan Ablett. Yes, they both are Premiership players, but Gary Ablett has gone down in history as one of the greatest AFL players of all time, where Cameron Mooney have stated that Nathan Ablett to him was the biggest waste of talent he's ever seen. Someone who could have been one of the greatest footballers and just wasn't. Also, in the 90s, you got Shane Crawford and his younger brother. Shane Crawford is a Premiership player, captain, and a Brownlow medalist, where his brother had retired at the age of 21. You got Luke Powell and Sam Powell. Luke Powell is a 3-time Premiership player, the Port Adelaide captain, the GWS captain. And his brother played a few games. And lastly, you got Michael Voss. Michael Voss is the captain of Brisbane. Well, was the captain of Brisbane. Brownlow medalist. Premiership player. Where Brett Voss had a successful career at St Kilda. He retired at 100-odd games. But he had a successful career nonetheless. So that's my interesting take on brothers in the AFL. In sport in general, I honestly do think that for some reason the younger brother does seem to always get over the older brother in sport. So shout out to my little brother Declan, and good luck in his grand final on Sunday. Can't wait to come down there and watch. and give you a speech or laugh at you because you lost. But actually, Declan has a 2-0 record in grand final, so he's doing okay for himself, that kid. But after this, I'm going to go through my own little rant about AFL right here on the AFL Hour on 3SSR. This is the AFL Hour with Liam. And it's currently 15 degrees here. Looks like it's not raining for the present time, but it probably will kick up again anytime soon. Time for a little rant. I spent the last week watching a few documentaries, as something I have to do in class actually, but I decided to watch the final story, which are about some grand finals I picked, and some players talk about it. And it made me realise, looking at that, thinking, the game was better back then. Not in the terms of skill, the skill's better now, the players are better now. Like Jason Tunstall wouldn't be as good as he was if they played the style they play now. But we'll go back to 1966 one, and some of the players are talking about how it feels to be the only St Kilda player to ever win a premiership. And you can see the tears and sadness in their eyes, that knowing that their team they've played for years and years and years, and they're the only players to ever win a premiership for that side. And just seeing the emotion on some of the players' face talking about how good it is to win a grand final, it's probably for all players, but further on, look at Dangerfield, for example. How would Dangerfield feel winning a premiership for a club that you've had one season at? You don't have that emotional connection to Geelong than what some of these St Kilda players would have had to their club, or some of the North Melbourne in 1975, Richmond in 1980 would have to their club, or even the Collingwood 1990 players. And that's the thing I realised. The term best player in the game, most of the players who will get the term best player in the game have played for different clubs. Dangerfield's currently the best player in the AFL, played for Adelaide, now plays for Geelong. Gary Ablett played for Geelong, now plays for Gold Coast. Chris Judd went from West Coast to Carlton. Even Ron Barassi back in the 60s went from Melbourne to Carlton. And Fife could be staying at Fremantle and could be leaving. So the term best player in the AFL kind of means you're going to move clubs. But I think, for me personally, that the one club, so the good players, so the one club player is not dying out. There'll be one club players always. But the good one club player. Once the team starts going down, they'll probably sign off a contract and go to another club type of players. Which would mean AFL will start being like the EPL and the NBA. It's funny how LeBron James has played in all these the last 6 NBA final series, and he's played for 2 clubs. EPL, apart from Leicester City last year, it's usually Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea, or even Arsenal up in the top 4. Which makes for not good TV. Not something. I don't understand how the EPL have such a huge following, considering only 4 clubs are good. Yes, they have. They can probably beat any club in Australia, but what's the point of watching? And soon AFL will become like that because players will want more money. And I'm a fan of the salary cap. I like the fact that only, I think it's $10,000. Sorry, $10 million is the salary cap, something like that. But it does annoy me to watch as a fan that the AFL no longer wants, the AFL players no longer want to be one club players. Oh, I've got a few. I think Tom Lynch will be Gold Coast's version of Nick Riewoldt or Matthew Pavlich for their club, the one club player who won't leave. And that's probably why I've rated Tom Lynch so highly, and I've got Gold Coast in my top 8 for next season. Based off him. But not all players will leave, like I've said. And I'm probably being a bit harsh, but I just think the fact that Geelong, Hawthorn, and Sydney are in the top 3 again. They were the top 3. They were in the top 3 in 2000. So they were in the top 4 in 2013. They were in the top 4. They were in the top 3 in 2014, and now they're in the top 4 again. And no, Sydney, Geelong was 6 in 2012, so it doesn't matter about that. But the fact that all these teams have stayed the same and haven't really budged in the last 5 years now kind of reflects the game in a poor light. The whole point of the 18-team competition, the whole point of playing free agency and that was that every club has an 18-year premiership window. They win one premiership every 18 years. That hasn't worked out. It worked out with Sydney winning 1 and Hawthorn winning 3. That's not a big issue. Clubs will go up, clubs will win a premiership, clubs will get bad, clubs will be good again. But the final thing that annoys me about the game today is the fact that there's no more famous coach's speech. And I was talking to Geoff actually a few days ago about that after watching a few grand finals, and some of the, it's like Alan Jean's 1966 speech when he said we've got 25 minutes to make a name for yourself like you never made before, or the don't think, do speech. We're now in a tactic-based society in sport, which is good in a way. But I guarantee you in the 2013 grand final, Ross Lyon wasn't given for your, you got 30 minutes to become a part of history speech. It was probably, look guys, it's not ideal, but we should do this. He probably didn't give St Kilda a rev-up speech in any of the 3 grand finals as well. The only coach, I look at 2 coaches that could give a good rev-up speech. You got Alistair Clarkson from Hawthorn, and you got Luke Beveridge from the Bulldogs. And if the Doggies do make a grand final, there'll probably be an emotional 3/4 time speech about Beveridge talking about the history of the Bulldogs and how they can one day become folklores of the football world if they get to win that premiership. Anyways, that's a bit of my rant. Apart from that, I think AFL, especially this season, has been better than it's ever been. I hope we stick with the amount of players we have, not the silly 16-a-side rule. And hopefully the game grows. It goes to more states, gets bigger internationally, and more footy is good for the world. Well, after this, I'm going to go through the remaining 3 games of the final series. So, no, I'm not. So, yes, I am. I'm going to go through the final 3 games of the final series here on the AFL Hour on 3SSR. Before that, it was One Day September, and before that, it was Up There Kazali here on the AFL Hour. I just thought to get everyone into the final spirit, and nothing's better, especially the song One Day in September, makes you feel like finals is here. Just hearing Tony Lockett finished his career on 1,360 goals. Buddy Franklin is currently closest here on 780. He still have 585 goals to go. Can Buddy do it? He must have a few. Well, he's still got 7 years left on his contract, so why not? It is currently 14 degrees here in Melbourne. The rain has seemed to stop again, but it seems to be on and off all day. So, after last night's second elimination final, the Doggies will either play the winner of tonight's Geelong or Hawthorn. The wet weather will probably favour Hawthorn a bit. I'm still not completely sold on Geelong as a team. I think take out Dangerfield, and I don't think they'll be anywhere near, past the easy draw, don't think they'll be anywhere near as good as they are at the moment. But in saying that, I do have Geelong in this game. I think Geelong will win. I think Hawthorn's also lacking form. But the Hawks have lost the last 2 the Hawks have won the last 2 against Geelong, which was in 2014, which was their last final, and the one before that was in 2013. And go to Geelong, they've only won 1 final since their 2011 premiership. So their record at the moment is 1-6 since the 2011 premiership. And only Geelong, this is also now one for Geelong fans, which proves that 2016 might not be their year. Out of all of Geelong's 9 premierships, only one of them has come in an even year, which was in 1952 when they defeated Collingwood. Let's go down to Saturday, as the Giants, 1,630 days after making their AFL debut against the Sydney Swans, will play against the Sydney Swans again in their finals debut. What a better way to have your first final against your older brother, so you can say, the team you're trying to get all the fans from. I honestly have, as much as I like GWS and I think they've had a phenomenal season making their first final appearance, I actually have them going out in straight sets. I have them losing to Sydney and then probably losing to Adelaide the next week. In a way that a straight set exit isn't a bad thing, but to them they probably don't want to. They think they can win. And believe it or not, done some research. GWS is not the only team in the AFL era to play their first final against the team they made their AFL debut. In 1991, Adelaide played their first game against Hawthorn, and in 1993, they played their first final against the Hawks. So there's a little fun fact of the day. I think this game, I honestly think Sydney will be too strong in the end. Buddy Franklin will probably kick 4 or 5, and Patton and Cameron might have 3 3 between them. I don't think it'll be the best day for the Giants. I could be wrong. I was definitely wrong about the Doggies. So we'll go down to Saturday night and the last game of the elimination finals, or the first round of the finals. Hawthorn versus North Melbourne. Not Hawthorn. Adelaide versus North Melbourne. This is the first final between these two since the 1998 grand final, which Adelaide won. This is North Melbourne's first final in Adelaide, but they have an even advantage because this is Adelaide's first final at Adelaide Oval. Most of the other ones were at Football Park or Amy Stadium, as you're called. Talking about records, last night's game could have been the last final ever played at Domain or Subiaco Oval, with the new Perth Stadium opening in 2018, and it's also been recorded that the new Perth Stadium could open during the 2017 final series if everything goes to plan. So my tips for the round, I got West Coast wrong, so Doggies move on to the next round. I have Geelong defeating Hawthorn in probably a close game. This one can go either way. The only game I'm not 100% sold on is this game. I got Sydney defeating the Giants in their first final. I just don't think Greater West Sydney can hold their own, but if they can, the sky's the limit. And I think Adelaide will get over North Melbourne by 80 points. North Melbourne have been gone. As what Geoff said last week, they're in the 8, but they look like they're not. They don't play like they're in the 8. They have that extra week, or extra 2 weeks since the bye. They don't play like a team in the 8, which will probably mean next Friday night at the MCG we would see Hawthorn take on the Doggies, and on Saturday night down at Spotless Stadium we'll probably see the Giants take on Adelaide, which will lead to the week after. Sydney will take on Hawthorn at the SCG, and at the MCG, Geelong will take on Adelaide, which will lead to a Sydney versus Geelong grand final. And I think Sydney will be too good on the day, and they will win their 6th AFL Premiership. I could be 100% wrong here. I probably am, maybe, but that's my views on the finals and the season so far. Speaking of finals, I've got two songs from the last few finals, just to pump people up a bit more. Here, on the AFL Hour, on 3SSR. On the AFL Hour, I am Liam O'Grady. And this is it for today. We're done now. Thanks. Thank you. I'm so blessed. Geoff couldn't be here today, but I think I did a good job by myself. We went through the EJ Wooden Legends game and the Women All-Stars, the Doggies. The best win since 1961. I honestly think the Doggies win this year was the best win since 1961. All the awards, all the best and fairest, and NAB Rising Star, trade rumours from Cloak to Tom Mitchell, and how annoying Little Buzz can be. Little Buzz are good, right? See, not even the computer agrees. This is 3SSR, the AFL Hour. We'll hopefully be back next week for the second round of the finals before we do 2 weeks at Sin on 90.7 to wrap up the season before we're back here again with the new show, the A-League Hour, here on 3SSR.